Hi, everybody. We'll get started. My name is Dimi. I am from Landcare, Australia, and I am a project officer and a drone pilot. And we are here to listen to Nick Stevens, who is going to talk to us about using technology in community-led deer control.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, everyone. We're almost at the end of the day. Thank you for hanging in there. I'm Nick Stevens. I'm a facilitator at South Gippsland Landcare Network. Just want to acknowledge the Bunurong Boonwurrung people as the traditional owners on the land on which I'm talking about. I am a Landcare facilitator. I'm a bit of a generalist. I'm certainly not a deer hunter or pest control specialist, so don't get too technical on me. But look, there's a wonderful bit of technology there on the front page. Bit of photo editing, demonstrating the problem we have with deer, and particularly how fast they can reproduce. The area which I'm talking about is South Gippsland. For those that don't know, you can see Wilson's Promontory down there in the bottom right corner. It's about 200 k's southeast of Melbourne, and the three coloured sort of sub-regions there represent three Landcare groups that exist along that coastline: Tarwin Landcare, Fish Creek and Corner Inlet. And each of those three groups have had a slightly different journey in their deer, community-led deer control. Our journey started with a Landcare member coming to us who had undertaken a large-scale re-veg project with Greening Australia. He and his neighbour had planted 130,000 trees, and pretty quickly they lost 30% of the understory and 10% of the trees to deer. So to that, together with a project that we were running along along that coastline there, that's called the Bunurong Coast. There's a big coastal park along there. We had a project with landholders to develop pest and weed plans, and through that project, deer were seen as one of the main problems for the farmers along that strip in terms of an emerging pest. So we had a lot of anecdotal evidence of deer sightings and damage to trees, damage to fences, damage to horticulture nurseries. And so I guess there was a voice in the community that we followed up with. This led to, you don't have to memorise this. This was the deer control strategy that we developed sort of at the back end of that pest and weed plan. And as you can see, you know, it's fairly involved. You've got to do a lot of things in parallel when you're looking at deer control. It's potentially very resource heavy. You can see that we had 15 actions in this bottom section here, 15 actions across 4 objectives. And keeping in mind that at this stage, we didn't even have a funded project. We'd actually just finished a funded project, and this sort of came out at the back end of it. So it was sort of like, this would be nice to do, but how are we going to do this? And we're going to make a start. And so any, I guess, help assistance that technology could provide, we were very keen to adopt, I should say, as soon as possible. You can think about this in a sort of a different way, in that, like anything, if you're a land manager, you're not going to do something just because someone told you it's a good idea. You've got to go through your own thought process, and I refer to this as a logic sequence. And I'm going to talk about these as we go and how technology could be used. So the first one is, you got to acknowledge that deer are present within the region and on your farm. So deer are elusive. You know, people might say, oh, I haven't seen them on my place, or yeah, I think I might have seen one, you know, every now and then. So, you know, that's kind of the first step. The second one is that deer cause damage. Some people say, oh, I like seeing them on my place. You know, the whole Bambi thing doesn't help. They are beautiful animals to look at, for sure. So you've got to get to the next stage of acknowledging that they cause damage. The third one is that they are a genuine problem. Now, it's a logic, I guess, it feeds on from then, but it's a continuation of the story, and that second part is there that it's only going to get worse if I don't do some action, or if we collectively don't take action. And then you've got the bingo moment of, okay, I understand, you know, what's going on, and I appreciate that deer are a problem, and now I'm willing to do something. And then, of course, our role is to assist in the correct way of doing this. So how can technology help us? So we adopted Deer Scan, which is part of the Feral Scan suite, and camera trapping to really get those first two done. Not in isolation, of course, but with other attempts. But these are the ones I'm going to talk about. YouTube, we did some videos. This is the bingo moment. And then using some technology to actually help control deer. So I'll move through these one by one. So who here has not used Feral Scan? Has not used Feral Scan? Okay, still a few. Yep. So Deer Scan is part of the suite of Feral Scan. They're a free web and phone-based app. And it makes it very easy to do the three things that are on the screen there: record sightings, record damage caused by a deer, and record control attempts. So three really major parts of your deer control efforts can be done through this. Damage can take many forms, and I should mention too that this is Feral Scan is developed, I think, by New South Wales DPI. Yeah, anyone here from New South Wales DPI? No? Yeah. So and they've been helpful as well. So looking at some back end, so we really encouraged the uptake of Deer Scan because in the Victorian feral deer plan at that time, where the map of dots of where deer were, there were no dots in South Gippsland. Yet we had all this anecdotal evidence of deer, but no actual data. So it was really important for us to get deer literally on the map for our region so that we could ask for funding, ask for support and that sort of thing. Ask to be considered in policies and planning. So look, this was some data, as I said, 21 to 25. We sort of started our attempts around the end of 22. Now I haven't named the zones because there is some sensitivity around data on deer. But there was three areas that we set up a reporting system in the back end of DeerScan, so we can log in and we can get figures. These are not public. No one can go onto DeerScan and get this information. You have to have access to the back end. So we had 3 zones, and basically you can obviously see there's differences between the three areas. The most successful where it was uptaken is zone number 2 there, where we had 572 sightings, and often when you sight you might see more than one deer. So you might see 1, 2, 5, 10. So that's why there's a higher number of deer sighted. So even though as he says 21, probably from 22 to 25 we've recorded 2,500 deer over 700 records of sightings. Now, damage, as you can see, is used a lot less. So there's sort of a under-recording of the damage caused by deer, and that's because we probably didn't really push it, but I guess in an ideal world we would have really pushed to say, as I said, deer, they cause damage to fences, they rub themselves on the trees, they can, cause car accidents. So this is a really useful part of DeerScan that's probably not used to its fullest potential, because you can take photos as well. So uploading photos is good for recording damage. And then, of course, we've got the controls. And again, once you're at the control level, you've really got to, this is a underutilised part of DeerScan as well, that you can use this to monitor and record your efforts in controlling deer. Just to look at some of the data that sits behind it. So this is just that first column of the table before the sightings, which is in the green. So this is just for one of those reporting regions, one of the 3 reporting regions. So you can see when our project started was when people started using the app and started recording deer sightings. So we had quite a good uptake of the app. That's tapered off a little bit, but ideally, I guess, if you're continuing with your control efforts, ideally you're going to see less deer. So, and it's about effort and reward, isn't it? So you want to be sustaining your efforts and getting reduced numbers of sightings. Here is the control effort for one particular group, and as you can see, it's actually stepped up. So this is positive, really, because there's a pool of deer that has to be controlled, and this, I think, for us, you kind of have to know the back of the story as well. But this is, I think, shooters probably having greater access to a higher number of properties as the project went on, and the farmers, getting more shooters on board. Oh, sorry. So look, in summary, with DeerScan, it's a good tool for getting people involved in reporting deer sightings. Definitely has potential for people to record damage as well, and great potential for recording control efforts. And you've got to be clear about the data security if you want people to use DeerScan, because people are fearful. There is illegal shooting in a lot of areas where there's deer, and people are worried about data being public. But it's really well protected in DeerScan, but you've just got to get that message across. The second project we did just in one of the Landcare group areas, the Tarwin Landcare group area, was a Victorian Landcare grant funded project where we set up 19 cameras across 17 farms to better understand the number, species and behaviour of deer. This we got great support from the National Feral Deer Action Plan people. They had an officer called Shannon, forgotten her surname, and they lent us the 4G cameras that basically sent all the images to a web-based dashboard of water, which wonderful for us processes all the images and uses AI to identify the species. So we had 30,000 images, of which just over 20% were deer. And there is a beautiful looking deer. So some of the analytics you can get with the Avorta program, obviously this is all automated. You know, you don't have to actually count any images yourself, which often happens with camera trapping. This does it all for you as they come in. So that's a breakdown, obviously, of what was seen. These macropods, obviously, you know, wombats, wallabies, kangaroos, possums. And the AI, because there is AI behind it, it self-learns if you... I think initially it was calling wombats cows. So we had to correct it initially, but over time it learnt. Thank you. This one's really good. It's a 24-hour clock. So here you can see the peak times of when deer images were taken. So there was obviously a peak around this sort of 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m, particularly around 8 o'clock. And this early morning, 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. So, you know, going by the data, this is when the deer are active. And if you want to set up a control program, you know, you can tell the guys this is where you want them, when you want them to be here, to be out looking for deer. And also just the images themselves, you know. A lot of people in this area down in Cape Liptrap had quite big areas of remnant bushland, and they were proud of having remnant bushland because they were giving homes to native animals. But what I think they learnt through this process was they were giving homes to more than just native animals, and for some of them it probably came as a bit of a shock, but also, as I said, we're trying to build the story to get them to that point where I want to take action. So yeah, that's just what some of the landholders said when they did a survey at the end. You know, from, like I said, that deer exist in our area to, you know, patterns of movement, relationship with cattle, because some said that there was less when there was cattle in that particular paddock. So the data itself provides a great platform for community discussion, community meetings to come around and actually talk about the data. So we're on to now, you know, acknowledging they're a problem and will only get worse. So a lot of them will only get worse is because of the amount of biomass that deer will eat, because they can be big animals depending on the species. So we can talk about dry sheep equivalent, that sort of thing, and also the fact that they can increase their population by 50% every year. So if you're not taking out a third to 50% of the population's going to go up. That's just to keep it at the existing level. So it's a huge effort. It's a huge effort. And the way we're going, you know, recreational deer shooters will never run out of deer. There's going to be plenty. So look, we worked again with the National Feral Deer Group to develop a heap of YouTube videos, and some of them are local. So this one's about Cape Liptrap, feral impact to the environment. This is the one we actually call the deer scare video because it does jolt people into action. And that's another one I just found online, done again by the National Feral Deer I think that was in New South Wales somewhere. So, you know, the great thing about YouTube, you just got to send a link out on your e-news, on your socials, and, you know, people can watch them in their own time. So, you know, when you're obviously building a story, telling a story, having discussions, yarning up, as we've talked so much about in the last couple of days, and, you know, this is the point where you want to get people to. And now we're acknowledging the correct way to control deer. So look, shooting is really the only method of controlling deer at the moment. The other one is exclusion, which involves expensive fences. And so there's obviously different legislation in different states for private property about what you can do with deer. In Victoria, that's our legislation. If you're a property owner or manager, you or an agent are permitted to shoot deer if they're causing damage on the property. So, and this is where you want to get people collaborating. You know, sending a shooter onto one property is not ideal. You want a cluster of properties and you want them talking to each other, and WhatsApp is really good for that. So we encourage, you know, groups or clusters of landholders to set up WhatsApp groups so they can talk to each other, they can talk to the shooter, they can coordinate efforts. And obviously thermal imagery, the other part of technology that I'll touch on today, is really making the whole pest control thing a hell of a lot easier. So some simple efforts. Just go through these quickly. Thermal monoculars. So they allow the user to scan their property, scan areas where they think deer might exist, which are different to thermal scopes, which are attached to a rifle for shooting deer. And then you have the thermal drones, which can fly over a whole farm or series of farms. So these tools have revolutionised detection, surveillance, and shooting. They just pick up things that you can't see. So they operate on temperature differentials between the atmospheric temperature and the body temperature. And monitoring of lethal control. This goes back again to the feral scan function of being able to record control. So this is a simple table that you can fill in online on your phone when you've had some success in controlling deer. And I guess if you're not using it yourself, we really ask that you talk to your shooter and ask them to record their efforts on this, so that as a group, as a community, you can really see the impact that you're making over time. Because without the data, you just don't know what impact you're having. Last of all, takeaway. So, you know, need to tell a story. That's been a message of this conference, isn't it? You need conversations, you need to tell stories, you need to be on the same page. And so this is where, you know, how we've used technology to get through this logic sequence of getting everyone on the same page that they need to take control on deer. You know, if you don't have Deer Scan on your phone or Feral Scan, please download it. The tools, communication tools such as YouTube and WhatsApp, you know, just fast track learning so quickly and make it so much easier for Landcare groups to get information out there. Thermal imaging, of course, makes control efforts more efficient, but you still need strong community leaders to get results. I think that's been the take home for us, in that the uptake of the technology differed depending on how strong the local community leadership was with really encouraging the uptake of that technology. This guy here, Bruce, he was awarded the 2025 Champion Deer Hunter. I think he's a solicitor, owns some land down near Cape Liptrap, got his shooting licence in 2022. That year he shot 15 deer. 23 he shot 80. In 24 he shot 80, and this year he's up to 115. That's partly because he's now on his neighbour's place as well as his place. But, you know, great that he just got caught up, you know, in the whole thing, and has ended up winning a Deer Shooters Award. This group actually has a Deer Hunters Ball every year, so that's where he's awarded. That's it.
We have time for one question. Maybe two.
It's good. Mr. Question, thank you very much.
Hi.
Yeah, two parts to the question.
Sorry.
Very quickly. Have you, in that area, have you got an overall estimate of total numbers? And do you think it's actually feasible to get to that 50% to make an impact on the overall population long term?
Yeah. Tough questions. Look, we are moving more into the thermal imagery, drone flying, just to be able to get a good assessment on deer numbers, because deer will move in and off. You know, they'll move out of forest onto paddocks, and you can shoot them when they're on the paddocks, but unless you've got thermal scopes, it's harder to shoot them inside bush. So the beauty of flying an area, you can say, well, let's just fly this area, and we can know very accurately how many deer you've got at that time in that place. So that's where we're more moving to, just to get actual absolute numbers, because we really, we don't know. We don't know otherwise. Can we get to the 50%? Look, yeah, that's right. You don't, yeah, that's right. That's right. So with the thermal imagery, we will know numbers in particular area where we're doing control efforts, and know at least a localised scale, can we do control to enough to sustain them.
Just one really quick, good question for you.
Yes.
Why can't hog deers be shot? Is it like they're protected, or they're native, or is they're just really aggressive?
That's a toughie. Okay. My understanding is that hog deer are originally from Sri Lanka, and their numbers in Sri Lanka are very low. So in their natural distribution, they are threatened, and for some reason that's justification for them to not be shot in high numbers in Victoria. And I think there's a bit of economics around it too, because there's a bit of, people will travel to Australia to be able to shoot hog deer and pay reasonable money to be able to do it.
I recommend finding your government person and
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, we went a little over.